Now, sitting to right next to me on the couch to my immediate left is Mr. Ishmael Hammond. He is a social worker, and he's also with the Special Attention Project. And I also have sitting in the middle Mr. Eugene Ehun. He's a self-advocate, and he's a member of 2 projects actually that are in collaboration with this project. And then we also have Mr. Prince Owusu JB, and he is the marketing officer. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So the 3 of you, I like this fact that it's all just, just gentlemen. All of you are men, if anything. But you're very passionate about teaching children and helping them overcome their disabilities. So Ishmael, you're a social worker,
yes,
and you work with a Special Attention Project. Just give us a synopsis. What exactly is it?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to say good morning to your viewers.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to be here to talk about children, Ghana's future leaders. Special Attention is an organization that works with children, out-of-school children with learning difficulties. And we do 4 things. First of all, we have a child support program. That is, we go to the streets, identify children that cannot learn because of learning difficulties, and bring them to our center to receive individualized education. Secondly, we are into awareness creation and advocacy. You realize that a lot of parents and teachers don't know about what specific learning difficulties are, and they've attributed the child's inability to learn to the issue of witchcraft. Others have even sent their children to spiritual camps,
yes, because
they are difficult and they can't learn in school.
So these are some of the ways that people, the knowledge that people have of learning disabilities.
Yes.
So Eugene, I know you have one to say, but Eugene, if you could also elaborate more on some of the learning disabilities, because most people are aware, okay, my child might be a bit slow, or my child might not be fast to catch up with other kids, but what are some of the learning disabilities?
Okay, good morning to your viewers. Okay, learning disabilities are actually normally we take for granted the ability to read and write. I mean, the reading and writing actually is one of the greatest tasks you can ever give to your brain, actually. Yeah. So not everybody comes out readily and grows up with that ability to read and write like everybody else. So we have people. I mean, SPLDs basically affect the regions of your brain that makes you understand the regular concepts, school concepts, and then be able to keep up with the rest of the class. When you have a condition like the SPLD, some people are dyslexic. Dyslexia is the inability to read and then focus on letter words, and then stuff like that, processing numbers and writing. It affects SPLDs affect that portions of your brain. We call something semantic coding. Semantic coding basically is the ability of one to understand and then make sense of what he or she is reading. So when you have a learning disability, it means you can understand and then make sense of what you're reading.
Yes.
So we can basically make use of it.
Okay.
The various concepts.
Okay.
That's how come learning disabilities come about.
So Prince Owusu JB, you actually work with a lot of children in Ghana, and especially with learning disabilities. In terms of the statistics, what exactly is the reality on ground in terms of how many children have learning disabilities in Ghana?
Okay. Generally, in every population, it is said that 10% of them, that is 1 out of 10 of every given group of population, have a learning difficulty. Okay. And the situation is not very different from Ghana. Actually, a little survey that we've made in Ghana reveals that the problem is really, really widespread. Just that because we are not aware and because many people haven't even heard about the subject of learning difficulties, they are not identified and given the necessary attention. So the problem is here with us. Yeah, we've had encounters with teachers, and you realize that they come up like, I've met a child like this before. I've met a child like that before.
So once you identify these things to them, then they begin to reconnect the child's behavior with that. It makes sense all of a sudden. Yeah. So can you tell us, Ishmael, what motivated you to set up this project? Because we know Ghanaian children do have learning abilities. Is it the fact that they couldn't stand children being watched, like to put a stigma on them that they are difficult?
Okay, thank you. The one that actually started this project was working with another project that were taking care of street kids. and the children were saying that they did not have anything to eat or money to go to school. So the organization was providing food and then school fees, educational materials for the children to go to school. But I realized that even out of these support, the food, the money, they were still dropping out. So the need for us to find out that if you have a child in the street and is there not because of money and not because of parental dysfunction and the other, what are the other factors?
Yes.
So we realized that these children need additional support for them to go to school. For example, the child will tell you he dropped out of primary 4. At least you expect a primary 4 child to be able to write his name.
Yes.
These children cannot do that. And specific learning difficulty means that the child has been given repeated instructions, yet the child cannot do it as the normal, as his other colleagues in the classroom. So this motivated this project. We realized that there's the need for us to take care of these children, give them the special needs and attention that they receive, and educate other people also.
Yes, because if anything, I also want to know how well equipped are the teachers in our public school systems are in identifying children who are like this. I'm sure you do a lot of education amongst teachers too.
As it stands now, GES does not recognize children with specific learning difficulties.
Really?
I know they are working with the inclusive education policy to be able to inculcate all these things. But when a child has the traditional disability, hearing, visual, that thing is taken care of, because learning disability is not seen. It's difficult for the child, for the teacher to know what is happening and to give the right the right method or the right direction. These are some of the challenges that are there. There's a knowledge gap. People don't know what is happening. Even the professionals that are supposed to know,
they don't know adequately enough. So Eugene, you are a member of both the SP LDS and Splendid, which are two organizations helping children learning disabilities, and you're not the only organization to have been set up in Ghana to help these children. What exactly are you doing differently, to reach out to these kids and make it more effective?
Okay, personally, I'm dyslexic. I grew up with a learning disability.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
How could you give us a background? How did they identify it with you?
Great. They never did.
They never did.
Until I grew up, actually, until I became an adult. But then, thankfully, I had supportive family, very supportive family. My family was great. You have they are really open-minded, and then so, they give you a chance to go out there and then do what you think you can do, and then what you're good in, what you think you're good at. But then I realized that the question comes in here: how many people are strong enough and then willing enough to go through the difficult school system you have, all the stigma, and then you can't do this, somebody is doing this, the family stigma attached to all this, and then how many people can actually stand it and not drop out?
Yes.
So 5 years ago, I embarked on this campaign. I was like, what? There are a lot of kids out there who are equally smart as most medical students you can find anywhere, but because they have SPLDs which never was identified, that's how come they ended up on the street or something.
So Eugene, what do you do right now?
I'm a self-advocate.
You're self-advocate.
On the team, yeah.
But in terms of dyslexia, because I think a lot of people still have this idea that if you're dyslexic, you just forever be slower than kids in your generation or people in your generation. But is dyslexia something you can?
It's a mouthful, though.
Yes, it is.
It's a mouthful.
I have the disease right now saying it. But is it something that you can overcome and become? Is it curable, if anything?
It's genetic actually, and then it is not exactly curable, but you can manage it. Einstein was dyslexic, but then you say, hey, see what he did. He did. I think with the right, it's a matter of training, and then the conventional teaching and learning doesn't work for everyone, especially when you have dyslexia or SPLD, any form of SPLD. So that's how come Splendid is there, and then SAP is there. You are being trained. They give you special what you call it, the teaching method. Teaching method. The teaching methods are different, so that you can be able to harness your strength.
Yes.
in spite of the difficulties.
Of the difficulties.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Prince, you're also, part of, working with these children. How many children do you have right now with your projects?
Well, let me say that Splendid actually doesn't work directly with children. What we do is that we train professionals, we train teachers, we train anyone at all that works with children or is interested in working with children, and to be able to become aware of the situation first of all, and also get the expertise of coming up with remedial strategies to help these children.
And Splendid stands for?
Specific Learning Difficulties Demystified.
Okay.
Yes, simply because these children are branded as sometimes stupid, lazy, bewitched, and things like that. We are trying to make people aware that they are not bewitched. They have a condition and they need support. When they get the support, they'll be fine. In fact, they can be marvelous, or they can do extraordinary things that ordinary children or the normal children may not even do.
Because I find it like, Shrem, now that you're talking about it, when you were in school, they always had that child who was always last, like he's always carrying the class. And actually, if you go back and you look at it, maybe these children weren't, stupid, because some of them aren't stupid.
Exactly.
I don't think any child could be termed as stupid or dumb. So maybe it's a learning disability, and that's something that we can, definitely overcome. So I think what you guys are doing is so great. But what are you seeing in terms of the trends? Because you guys have mentioned that some kids are labeled as witches, some kids are labeled as stupid, lazy. My favorite is Akolabone. So what is the reality on ground? Are people really taking this learning disability seriously? Ishmael?
Yes, the answer is yes and no. Yes, because SAP is there, Splendid is there, and we are spreading the message. And no, because now it's not at the grassroots. It also needs to go up for policy to change. As it stands now, the Ghana Education Service does not promote, their policies does not promote inclusive education. They still talking
that is something that I find so shocking.
Talking about special schools. We are saying that all the special schools should be, cancelled in a way to make way for the mainstream education. Every child can learn, and rather is the facilities and the method that should be in place for that child.
I agree with you, Ishmael, because I feel like sometimes in a parent's quest to, normalize the child, they might take the child out of the, mainstream. Is it advisable to do that, to take the child out of the class and maybe take him to a special place where he wouldn't be, teased or judged, in that sense?
It does not, because of two things. First of all, if you take the child out of society to an institutionalized part, now what you are saying, the child is learning not with the community, it's learning outside the community. And even when the child comes back and is rehabilitated, because community is not part of the rehabilitation process, they might not even see that child as a normal person in court. The second thing is that it's not just about the issue of education, but it's about the well-being and the welfare of the person in that society. And if you take that child out, you are doing a lot of harm to that child. Because that's why we are promoting inclusive education for these children to learn in their own community, where the systems are in place, the Braille, the sign language and all that in the community, in the normal classroom for that child to be able to learn.
Okay, because that is understandable, but I also feel like sometimes with our public school systems, if you go there, one teacher to like 40 kids or 50 kids, so sometimes for a teacher to take time out of teaching and pay attention to one child might be, I don't know, asking a bit much. Do you think so? Like in terms of looking at what teachers have to go through now, adding the the responsibility of taking a child personally, and as you're teaching the ABCs, you have to make sure that this child is paid attention to. Isn't it something where they can go to another institution and get the education, Prince?
Okay, well, I would say that the educational system in Ghana has challenges. There are so many challenges, and we need to, all of us or collectively, we need to do a lot to make to bring about some changes or to bring about improvement. What Splendid has done in the past with the support of SAP is that we've trained resource teachers, and you find that these resource teachers are sometimes in charge of like 10 schools.
back to the show, and this morning I'm honestly having a great conversation about children with learning disabilities. I think it's so important, and Eugene and Ishmael and Prince have been opening my eyes to just all the little signs that we miss. You know, not just as parents, anyone who's involved in a child's life. There's always a way you can identify, you know, some discrepancies here and there. And we were speaking to Ishmael, who's a social worker, Eugene, who is a member of both Splendid and the Special Attention Project, and Prince, who's the marketing officer for Splendid. And Eugene was just telling me about some of the difficulties he had to encounter growing up, and the myth that, you know, a learning disability can be grown out of.
Yeah.
You have to give a child lifelong coping skills, apparently.
Exactly.
How do you deal with your condition?
Yeah, it's all a matter of finding the right group or the right team. You know, the support basically is the support. You know, because basically I remember I go through banks and then filling out forms. You know, I see all the small boxes and I get disoriented. I don't know where to put a number or a letter. It goes beyond just the classroom thingy. You know, it affects your daily functionality. You know, your functioning. Affects your orientation. You know, you go to large places, large buildings, and then you can't find your way around. You know, you get lost.
Yes.
Your friends call you, and then they go like, meet us here. You know, you meet us here, and then you met them here last Saturday. So why can't you find your way around the mall or something? Again, and then you have to find a defense mechanism or something, a story to tell, you know, a joke to tell, to cover. Yeah. But it's frustrating sometimes, you know.
Because as you're telling me the story, I'm thinking, how does a person not remember? How does a person get disoriented? But that makes me think that it's internal. You're not doing this on purpose.
Exactly.
It's something that it's internal.
Yeah,
to
you know, SPLDs, it affects the regions of your brain, you know, in such a way. We call something your auditory memory. It affects memory. So basically, your auditory memory is impaired. Your visual memory is also impaired. Visual memory or auditory memory is not. Visual memory is not what I'm seeing, but it's how my brain makes sense of what I see.
Interpretation of it.
Exactly. And then your auditory memory is what you're hearing and how well your brain is making sense of what you're hearing at a particular time. And then your processing memory, basically, you know, how all these things come together to make you makes a complete sense of what you're experiencing in real life or in real time.
But when I see Eugene, I'm just positive because he's fine. Like, you can't tell, he looks great. I mean,
exactly.
And if anything, the fact that he's up here speaking to, you know, myself and, you know, you at home about his condition tells you that this learning disabilities can be lived with. So Ishmael, I also wanted to find out how parents can get proactive now, because if I had a child, I would definitely want to know, are there signs that I should be looking out for as my child develops?
Yes. When a child is unable to cope in classroom activities, there are signs that the child will show up. And these negative, sometimes, most of the time, the signs are negative. But that should tell you, the parent, that the child is rather calling for attention. For instance, when it gets to Monday morning, the child's uniform will be nowhere to find, to be found. Hide the school uniform makes it very, very difficult, uncomfortable for the parents to go to school. Will cry all the time to go to school. Don't just beat the child. Ask yourself why. Why? Even in the classroom, they will be disturbing. You see them in one chair, the next time they are in the other chair. The teacher asks, in the process of asking the question, the teacher will not even finish asking the question. That child will raise his hand up to answer and gives the wrong answer. It's very hyperactive. They cannot concentrate. That is the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. These are signs to tell you that the child is asking for a solution to his problem.
And if anything, that was something that I was told, if anything, it looks like the child is defending, like it's a defensive mechanism. Because they can't learn, they're trying to distract from the fact that they'll be asked to answer a question or work out a problem.
And in some instances too, the children themselves don't know what is happening to them, but they know they can't learn like their other colleagues in the classroom. So, you know, it's like that. You have to come up with something, and they do that. Some of them do not want to go to school, and they become school dropouts. So these are the signs and symptoms that parents and teachers should find out. In the home setting, you have equally intelligent children. You ask them to go and bring ABC, and they go and fetch it. But then that particular child, you ask the child to buy just 2 items. They go for an hour, they come back and tax you again. What did you say I should buy? These are symptoms that parents should know. A lot of these children, because of these conditions, has been criticized. And because of the criticism that they receive at the home settings, they also like to condemn everything, condemn school, that school is not for them, and they condemn society. And what they do is that they confide in friends that are also not experienced, and they tell them, oh, you leave home, I know I can take you to Kanishin, and you can live a comfortable life.
So that's how this happens. So it's not always that you could find a child on the streets that's just from maybe poverty or
Exactly.
And it might interest you to know that my work, I engage with these children every day in the streets. Averagely, it takes you between the period of a year or 2 before you can convince a child that you can leave home, you can leave the streets and get back home. A lot of them are coming from good homes, well-to-do homes. Parents will tell me, I give the child everything. They even have rooms of their own, but yet they can't stay.
Prince is like itching to, get into the conversation here. What do you have to add to this?
Yes, I would like to say that let's try to put ourselves in the shoes of these children. For example, your parent take you to a school, and then the school says that the school takes you through a test and says that you are not able to pass this test, so we can't accept you into our school. Okay, you go to another school. The school you take the test all right. You don't do too well, and then let's say the school just tries to accept you and perhaps take you a year or 2 back. You go to the classroom. You are trying to keep up with your studies, and it's not going very well. Under normal circumstances, what do you think such a child will feel? That child will feel less. That child will feel like he or she is incapable of doing things like ordinary people, or the ordinary children. So they will find a way to release the tension or the pressure on themselves. And I find it quite funny that many schools around, or some schools around, say that we are the best schools you can find.
Of course.
And all they do is
charge
that
an arm and
all they do is that they pick the best children, the best students.
Because that's what I was thinking. Because if children are in a classroom and you have that one child who's always last, who's always the teacher kind of just writes that child off. So long as he has maybe 10 students keeping up with the performance and are getting the A's, they are fine. But what about those ones who are not getting
That is it. So if a school really wants to make an impact, then I think you should pick children from all categories, including children with learning difficulties. Because if a child is always getting 20% and you're able to work on the child for the child to get 50%, then I think you've done really well.
I think so.
More than a child who gets 90% and has improved to 100%.
So another thing I think is like when a parent hears this, parents, you're a parent, you love your child, regardless of whichever fact that you see they are slow or not. Is it dangerous for parents to try and deal with this on their own? Can they find ways to teach a child to overcome this disability, or do they always have to seek out a professional? Because not everybody in Ghana can hire a professional or take it to the best schools who can identify this. So how would that work, Prince?
Okay, I think for everything, at least you need to have some kind of knowledge about it to be able to work or live with it. And so I would say that it is important that if a parent realizes that a child has that condition, that parent tries to enhance his or her capacity in that area, that is, try to study a bit more about it, so that he or she can be able to help the child. And so that is what we do at Splendid. We actually train teachers. We run introductory courses for parents, other professionals, and whoever is interested in working with children. We train them to be able to at least have some pocket information about SPLDs and also have some understanding or be able to come up with some remedial strategies to help these children.
Because I find that with the organization, which is the Splendid, you deal with identifying the problems early enough. And Ishmael, I feel, works with children who have already, they've dropped out of school. So if anything, they are the worst case scenario. They're the ones that have taken matters in their own hands and run away from home. So how do you try and reincorporate them back? Because you said it was so difficult to even get them to come back home.
It is because, as I said earlier, they've been criticized both at home. You are stupid, you are lazy, you can't, this simple work, your genius sister can do it. Why can't you do it? So they condemn. Because of that, they are also living with fear, and they also become apprehensive. They are ridiculed. they become shy and call into their own world. You are a parent and you stay with that child and see your child as friend, because if you don't do that, they will confide in other friends, and before you realize they've dropped out of school, they leave home and they come to the streets. Parents and caregivers must also try to understand why the child is behaving in that particular matter and not just jump into conclusion. And I think employing the services of Splendid also, I was also trained by Splendid so that I can identify some of these children.
But what do you find in terms of when you go to these schools? What do you find? A lot of children have these, conditions and is not being looked at all?
A lot of children are there, and I can say that over there, even in Carnation in the streets, if you take 3 street children in Carnation, one of them has a learning difficulties. So the teachers are always complaining that they've done everything they could, and I could understand the kind of work on these children. Yeah, they are difficult children. They are difficult children, but of course that will bring the best in you. So the thing is patience. Try to also, children with learning difficulty, it works best when you try to negotiate with them. Try to know what the problem is. Some of them, they might not be able to finish an assignment within the 30 minutes. Give them extra time. Let them sit closer to you. And once you do that, the situation is almost addressed. Yeah.
But you do advise that all this training, all this teaching is done within the normal environment.
Exactly.
Yes,
but not taking them outside of that. Because I feel like sometimes they need special attention. Because when you put a spotlight on a child that, okay, what about you, Kofi? Is like, most children don't want that spotlight and that stigma on them. Because, children can be mean. And they're not aware of it, but they can start teasing, him. And, because how was your conditioning done in terms of dealing with dyslexia, Eugene?
Okay, basically, I think I was a kind of type that would search for answers everywhere. I'm really smart, but then
you are, yes, you can tell.
But then the condition never. My intelligence never reflected my schoolwork, and all that. So I was always asking questions alone. In my quiet time, I was like, "Why can't I do this?" Why? And then the growing up in school, I remember I had a friend. It wasn't my friend anyway. It wasn't my school friend. And I scored a lot of zeros in math. I scored a lot of zeros in math, and then he would just take my score and then just write. Draw a face, make a funny face with the zero and all that. And that thing kills you inside,
Of course.
Kids can be the meanest
creatures
sometimes,
ever.
So I'm like, okay, fine. So I grew out of all those things, and I was like, I kept on asking questions. So 5 years ago, that's when I started researching, personally started researching, and then have tons of books on SPLDs and dyslexia. I didn't stop asking questions. I would write to organizations abroad and need help, and then they would send me a letter back and all that. Just to find out exactly what's wrong and then just keep up with the regular system.
Wow. It just sounds like, sadder to me that maybe, when you were a kid, you had to go outside of Ghana and get there. So it's so good that Splendid and Special Attention is here. So at least children don't have to write a long letter. Even writing a letter cry is a problem for most kids. And then you have to wait for a reply. Oh my God. But thank you so much to all of it. It's been a great conversation, honestly. I've learned a lot about disabilities. And I think I would catch myself next time I'm looking at the child like, we are collaborating. But I think thanks to Ishmael Hamoud, and he is a social worker also with the Special Attention Project, and Eugene Ehun, he's a self-advocate, and we just found out he's an adult with a learning disability, and he doesn't sound like he has any disability whatsoever. And Prince Owusu JB, and he's the marketing officer for Splendid. Oh, before we go, how can someone reach out to you if there's a parent out there or an individual?
The person can go onto our website, www.splendidgh.org, or call us on 050-832-8076.
Can you repeat it again? But I think thanks to Ishmael Hamoud, and he is a social worker also with the Special Attention Project, and Eugene Ehun, he's a self-advocate, and we just found out he's an adult with a learning disability, and he doesn't sound like he has any disability whatsoever. And Prince Owusu JB, and he's the marketing officer for Splendid. Oh, before we go, how can someone reach out to you if there's a parent out there or an individual?
The person can go onto our website, www.splendidgh.org, or call us on 050 832 8076.
Can you repeat it again?